Hey, hey, hey. How we doing? Joshy here for race recap from round 11 at Zolder. I've got the car in behind me for repairs after the race. But yeah, another, unfortunately, don't want to spoil it for you, but another tough, tough race that was looking very promising from the start. But as always, let's check in with the standings. So after the race, I've still managed to hang on to P3. I was hoping to maybe bump Jason away from P2, but yeah, didn't get a good enough result, unfortunately. But so Eddie's still on top, and I think he's definitely sewn up the championship now. He's got that all sewn up. Jace and myself, 2 and 3. It'll probably come down to the last race this week on where we end up, and then Ludovic in P4 at the moment, and again has an outside chance, depending on his result, of picking up either P3 or P2. It's going to be a close one here, close finish. I think everybody else is probably out of the running at this stage for those top 3 spots. Um, so, hi Miguel, how we doing, my friend? Missed you this week, dude. Could have used you here. Gonna take a look at quali. I had a pretty decent qualifying. So Eddie, on my first run, I put in a 14.7, and that was good enough for provisional pole. My second lap, I was up on my delta, and I could see I was up probably by about 2/10, and I was thinking, cool, that this could be pole, and then just on the one of the last corners, I just flubbed it a little bit and lost that time and didn't end up improving, and Eddie ended up improving by just over a tenth, and that was good enough for pole, and yeah, I ended up P2, a tenth behind, and then Ludovic a tenth behind me. Jace said he didn't have a great one, couldn't put it all together, and he was 6/10 behind pole. So we were, we're looking pretty good in terms of pace up the front there. So feeling pretty good going into the race. But still in the back of my mind, was last week, and we all remember the disaster start I had at Laguna. Um, as I said, I got this new wheel, and last week was the first week with it. I wasn't very used to it. Again, I'm still not sure what happened at Laguna. I still think it was a combination of a bump and shifting into first without the clutches in, jumped the car forward a little bit and got a lot of wheel spin. But I'm pleased to say this race, I had a really good start. So let's take a look at that. This is just on the grid now. Let's take a look at the first lap, and then we'll take a look at the rest of the incidents and so on for this race. So I got a great start. I think I pulled a little bit on Eddie, but here the outside is actually the outside at this track on the start is not great. And the profile of the corner is you're late apexing and it narrows. So usually like this, I'm on the racing line here. But what I have to be careful of, I'll just sort of show it from overhead, is I have to turn in later because I'm worried about the people on the inside. And you'll see Ludovic sort of sending it a little bit up the inside. And I have to be a little bit careful there. I felt I had enough of a gap because my start was so good, but I still lost ground to Ed in front of me where I shouldn't have lost ground. But I had to be a little careful going in, not to try and take the apex because I would have had Ludovic in my rear seat. um, but you can see, even though I was very close to Ed going in, I'm now, 2 car lengths behind. And then I've got Ludovic right on my tail and having to, you know, be a little bit defensive. No, I know how aggressive he is. He's one of the more aggressive drivers in the series at the moment, and I knew that I had to not come wide out like I normally would want to, because he would want to take the inside then. So I've gone a little bit defensive from the middle of the road, and it's compromised my exit here. So it's allowed him to get a pretty, good run here. Again, I was concerned about him switching back and diving to the inside on this corner. Again, he's been known to do that quite a bit as well. So I've covered enough and then ducked back out to take the normal racing line. He's got a lot of understeer through there, but he's managed to hold pretty good speed. At this point, I knew he was within 2/10, so I flipped on DRS just to make sure in the slipstream he's not going to get, a better run and force me to go defensive into this chicane, which this chicane sucks at the best of times, but if you're having to go defensive in there, it's just a mess. So he's already trying to play some games. He's pulled out, tried to show me a bit of a look to be like, oh, hey, I'm going to dive bomb. I didn't bite on that one. And for me here, like this whole first lap, I was, to be honest, quite nervous. I'm in a great position. The guy behind me I got a reputation for being quite aggressive. And I'm being pretty cautious here, and on the first few laps just to get a few clean laps under my belt before I really start to push. So I've dropped a bunch of time to Ed. I'm falling still back into Ludovic. Even though I've sort of pulled out a decent gap here, again I've gone probably a bit too conservative into this corner. And it's allowed him just to close up a bit. I'm a bit tentative under braking. And it really shows sort of in this last one. He's braking much later, and I'm just being a little bit more conservative. It's allowed him to close up, and this is where I'm going to stop it, and we're going to go to our first segment.
Photo?
Yes.
It's called a motor race, okay?
So yes, it's called a motor race. I'm gonna have a bit of whinge. I'll play it through, and then let's chat about what happens here. Yep, that wasn't good. That was not good. So again, like I said, all the build up, all the mind games that I was, all the things I was thinking about, the whole way through. So again, I'm thinking at this point he's 2/10 back. I've covered the inside a bit, and he was far enough back that I thought, okay, at this point there's no way he's gonna go try and take me into turn one. It's just not a good place to do it. So I start to move back to the racing line, and he's still there, and the turning point comes up now, and he's pulled out. And if I go forward to me, he's not in my mirrors yet, and the turning point here is like that tall structure in front of you. That's about the turning point. So it's here at the turning point. You can see I've started to brake and I'm starting to turn in. That I've noticed him in my mirrors on the left, and at the same time I've got a call from the spotter right here, and you can see I've gone to turn in and I've just hesitated and brought the wheel back straight a little bit because I've got a call on my spotter saying car left, and I've thought he's just sent it up the inside, and because now he's in my blind spot, I don't know where he is, so I've let off the brake a little bit, kept the wheel open more than I would want to. Like I want to be aiming for the apex right here, again, it's a late apex. And so I'm way out of position and carrying too much speed in here. And when you're in this position, I can't brake more because I'm just going to sort of lock and understeer wide. So I'm having to manage my brake. And I'm also thinking, I thought he was like way further alongside, and that's why my spotter said car left. But he was further back than I anticipated. So I've given him more room than I ought to, and I'm carrying just too much speed through. And I've just understeered wide. If it was maybe 2 laps later, I might have had the grip to stay in bounds, but I just didn't. And it's so bumpy here. And unfortunately, I talked about this last week at Laguna. My steering wheel is still a little bit turned, and if you're on here bumping away, you need a pretty straight steering. And I thought I might have been able to make it out, but it was just too late, and I was starting to spin here. And unfortunately, Jace behind me had really nowhere to go. I was locking everything to try and stop, and he's just gone a bit too wide, and yeah, he's lost it as well, and unfortunately hit the wall. I managed to stay out of the wall, but yeah, that wasn't great. So anyway, the reason I've called this segment it's just a motor, it's a motor race Toto. We went car racing, is because I feel a little aggrieved, but at the same time, this is my fault. I think if I had this again, I would just turn in. Again, like I said, Ludovic is one of the most aggressive drivers, and if he's trying to dive bomb me here, I think if I had turned in normally, if I had tried to take the normal racing line, which is, I would have been. You can't quite see you can't see my mouse, but I would have been about center of the track right now. I'll go back to my quali lap. Oops. I'll go back to my quali lap and just show you the normal line here. So you can see here, I'm about middle of the road before the white line. And if I go through to this lap, I'm to the right of where I want to be. I want to be a car width further to the left. And I think I would have made it okay if I had just turned in normally. It would have been close. And again, the reason I left space is when my spotter called, said car left, I'm like, oh shit, he's gone way deeper and way hotter in. If I turn in, I'm going to have an accident. So next time though, I will turn in. I think I've kind of had enough of the dive bombs. Even though, he's pulled it up in time, I'm not going to know that. So it's on me. But at the same time, next time I'm just going to turn in, and if he's there, we might have a incident. But in these situations, if you're constantly throwing it up the inside, which is not the first time this has happened, you're never going to learn. Like, it keeps working for him, so why stop doing it? And yeah, so that's that. Unfortunately, we'll come back to what happens afterwards. But that was just a super, like, incredibly disappointing from the good start. Good qualifying, the good start, and then for that to have that to happen on the second racing lap, it's just incredibly frustrating. Part of me wishes I had just let him go when I knew, he was fighting so hard initially. As we went through on that first lap, he was pushing me the whole way, throwing some fakes, getting really close. I should have just let him, waved him by, and then put the pressure on him. I feel like I would have had the pace. Looking at his lap times, and although he's not under pressure, I could have been there or thereabouts with him. So yeah, very unfortunate. Anyway, let's go. Let's move on to the next segment.
Nothing, just an incident on the race.
Alright, just an incident time. The first one, unfortunately, happens on the first lap, and it's between Philip Hillard and Jamie Byrne. Poor old Jamie. We were chatting this week, and he said, I hope I do not make the race recap. And unfortunately, I'll play it through here, he's made the race recap. Not from his fault, though. Yeah, Phil. What can you say about that one? I don't know. I think brain fade and just misjudged braking point, because he was a long way back. Lost his braking reference, I'm guessing. Oh yeah, he's lost his braking reference. I mean, usually probably braking about here. And it seemed like, yeah, he's braking probably here once he realizes Jamie's slowing down. Fortunately for Jamie, though, he got away with it. Incredibly, he got away with no damage, or at least damage I could see. Maybe he got, I just can't see the damage, but that's not to say there isn't any. So yeah, where did Jamie finish? He finished P6, so... Oh, sorry, not P6. He finished P4. So awesome. Awesome job, Jamie. You got through that one. And lived to fight another day. Lovely. Philip. Yeah, let's... he's trying to jump the chicane. Airborne. Absolutely airborne. Anyway, incident 1. Incident 2. This involves myself. So after this little thing, I coming on, being a bit careful, and then thought I was all good, and was just going around the corner, and then this happens. Super unfortunate, this one. It was a little weird. If I play it from Shane's perspective, I guess he's seen me up ahead, maybe thinks I have damage, and then he's just gone in very hot, very, very hot. There's one little thing here that's caught my attention. There's a braking and then a throttle blip, some maybe to try and, I don't know, scoot round. I'm not exactly sure, but you can hear that, just a quick little blip again, and I think that's just that little blip has given him a bit too much speed in, and he's just pushed wide, and unfortunately, I mean, there's netcode contact here. This is actually another thing that if you're not in Australia, it's not much of a concern, or it's something you don't think about quite as much. I don't think is netcode. So you can, like there's maybe half a meter, yeah, maybe a bit over half a meter in it. But it's another reason that when I was racing Ludovic, it's just the calculus is a lot different. We end up trying to leave a lot more space because we know that we've got a 250 millisecond ping, which is a 500 millisecond or half a second round trip by the time we communicate with the server and back. So it just means in these cars when you're doing, I'm doing 140 k's an hour. You've got Shane doing 100 and from 160 down to 140 k's an hour. That's a lot of ground to cover in half a second. So it's another reason why I think a lot of us in Australia race with a little bit more margin at play, because we just know that you get close within a meter and it could be just netcode lights out. Anyway, this was the race ender for me. There, I got side pod damage, so that was you can see there I've picked up side pod damage. Yeah, so there, and that's another big netcode. You can see that's almost a meter and a bit. There, and I've picked, so that's what caused all the damage for me. And after that, my lap times were just gone. I was a couple seconds off the pace, or at least a second and a half off the pace after that, which is again, I think I could have made a bit of a comeback if it weren't for that, but that's how it goes. On to the next one. I think that's lap 3. Lap 3. And we've got lap 3, John. I've just noted down a few things watching the race back. This is less of an incident, more of a mistake, a little bit hot in there. That happens, unfortunately, especially at that chicane. Alright, the very last one. Lap 17. And James versus Jay. This one here is a bit of a classic incident. Laps, sorry, I'm on lap 18. So lap 17. We've got Jay closing in on James. I'm not sure if James might have had some damage or something like that, but he seems a little bit slow. We've got Jay here. Now, this chicane here, it's hard to go single file through, and I just wouldn't recommend trying to have two Formula cars go through side by side here. And the reason is these curbs are quite aggressive. So if in a GT car you can cut across them quite a bit, so you can go side by side, but in the Formula car you can't really take much more than Jay's taking through there, and when you do, you're just plomping, clattering into whoever's next to you. So this is what's happened there. Unfortunately, James has tried to stick with it. He would have to be, I would say, the roles would have to be reversed for James to have any chance at this. He would have to be ahead by half a car length at least to be able to take away the corner enough to make Jade have to slow down more and take the angle tighter. So if James was the car length further ahead, so half a car length ahead of Jay, he would have had more of a chance there. But unfortunately, he's it's just not a great spot. Anyway, that's all the incidents for this race. As I said, it wasn't the race I was hoping for, especially after the great qualifying at the start. And in a chance to really get some great points. But yeah, so hard lesson learned there. Going to race a lot differently, especially going to race Ludovic a lot differently. Just again, like you can see here, he is so close. And as I said, we're racing with Australian pings. It's just it's inviting trouble. So often us leaving margin on the table when we're from Australia is an opportunity. It's seen as an opportunity, like, oh, we're leaving some space, or we're leaving some more margin, or we're braking a bit sooner, or we're going wider, and that's primarily because concerned about the netcode incidents that we have, and that invites the trouble. So I think the lesson I've learned is not to worry about that, to drive as I normally, as if it didn't exist. And then if incidents happen, then it means hopefully the person who's doing the bombing, who's being more aggressive, will hopefully understand a little bit more that racing so close, with this kind of latency, with this kind of lag, it's just it's just not great. It's not fun racing like that in those situations. But also a lesson for me is, I guess, if I'm in these situations again with someone pushing me and feeling like there's going to be an accident, just kind of let them have it. More often than not, I think in those situations, the aggressor, once they do get past, ends up making some kind of mistake anyway when you sort of start putting them under a little bit more pressure. But yeah, look, I've only got myself to blame here. Yeah, what can I say? Look forward to Brazil, last race this week. We're in Interlagos. I again had a great qualifying there last year, but there was an incident in front of me in the first turn. Someone had locked the rears, and unfortunately I had nowhere to go and ended like that. But yeah, hopefully it's going to be able to pick up the pieces. I've had a few terrible races, the last two, and the last 3 and 4 races. We had the unfortunate incident at Bathurst, which again I could do nothing about. It was a crash in front of me and nowhere to go. But yeah, got to get back on the horse and hopefully get get a good result to finish the season. And yeah, hopefully secure that 3rd place or 2nd place. See where we're at. But anyway, thanks for watching. Hopefully next week we'll be back with a good race recap. But yeah, until then, take care, party on, and peace.
Just need some time to clear my head, but you insist that we should talk instead.